Hey everyone, how's it going? Juan Dhas here, and welcome to this week's lesson video. And today we're actually talking a little bit about something I think that's quite universal, by the way. Always gotta have a bit of coffee. So we're talking a little bit about form, and this was inspired by a live stream I did a few days ago. And someone asked about playing changes while keeping the form of a tune. Which I think is a really universal thing. It's not just for guitar players, it's for musicians, period. It's something that we kind of confront at some point or another in our journey as improvisers. And it's something absolutely vital. I think being able to have an independence and understand the form of a piece and just kind of play around as you see fit without having to depend on people is such a valuable skill. That way you're not leaning on the bass player, you're not leaning on the drummer, or if you're a drummer, for example, you're not leaning on a pianist or a guitar player to see where you are in the harmony or to mark the harmony for you. Whatever instrument you are, you're capable of standing on your own 2 feet. And this is a very poignant issue, I think, just because it happens to us all. I mean, I remember struggling with it myself when I started improvising. I'd lose the form and I'd wonder, why can't I keep track of things? Or, you feel like the weak link in the ensemble. So there are a multitude of reasons for this, but we're going to focus on 3 key reasons why you might be losing the form. And why I'm going to talk about this is because I think in just being aware of this, the problems start to fix themselves. By the way, for those new here, I do have a Patreon. I just launched it recently. I'm actually going to do an extended lesson. So if you like what you see in this lesson, head on over to the Patreon link. I'm going to go through an exercise or a couple of ways of practicing it. But hopefully this will give you enough information to work with and run with for a while. So the first reason is actually one that's surprisingly simple and very often overlooked. And most people think it comes down to their playing ability, when in all actuality it's something as simple as not knowing the tune. Point blank, just not knowing the tune. So what does this mean? It doesn't mean like you've played Stella by Starlight like I did in the intro for a couple of times and you're going, okay, I now know Stella by Starlight. Knowing the tune requires a much more in-depth analysis and an in-depth journey, if you would, to kind of learning a tune. I think I talk about this in one of my standards videos, so I'm going to put the link up here if I can find it. It's one of the old ones I did back when I was in Dubai. But to summarize, basically what I mean by learning the tune is not just learning the harmony, the chords, and the melody, but learn it inside out. So right? Do do de da de do 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 da do do oh da do de do de da do de da do de da de do da do de da. Evidently, I haven't played it in a while, but one of the things you got to understand about learning the tune is it's got to be a little more internalized, and I definitely can have it more internalized. I could sing it for you right off the bat, but I haven't played it in a while on my instrument. So, tune upkeep, that's something important and a totally different topic. But at least having the tune somewhere in your system means it's running on autopilot in your head. To some degree or another, when I'm playing with musicians and I'm playing a standard, I'm paying attention to where I am in the form by where I am in the melody. And that's almost always going on in the background, and it's good to have that so you can draw from it. For example, the B section in Stella, or the bridge, right? Right? So just understanding that helps you make that change. Or understanding that's the last A. Or that was a variation I played, but hearing, right? Just understanding that tells me I'm at the end of the A section, or at the end of the last A. Or if I hear that motion going from 2-5, but then I hear this C minor, that means I'm at the top of the form. So I can pay attention to these things if I'm hearing them on the bandstand. If I'm playing independently, just playing on my own, solo, see, I started calling back the melody there. So I'm always paying attention to this stuff. Also, knowing the tune means knowing the harmony, and that doesn't mean just knowing the chords independently of themselves. Just E minor 7 flat 5, A7, C minor, F7, F minor, B flat. It's understanding the relationships. So, seeing as we're in the key of B flat, we're starting on sharp 4, at least if you're playing these changes. You're starting on sharp 4, and then going to the related 5 chord of that. Then you're going to the 2 of the actual key, 5, and then 2-5 to the 4 chord. Then flat 7, 7, and then you go to 1. 2-5 to the 6, right? Bit of an unrelated 2-5, like B flat minor, E flat. That's going to take you to like 4-7, 2 to 4-7, then 5 major, and 2-5 to the 6, but instead of going to the 6, we go 2-5 of the 6 chord. Of the 6 chord. Sorry, there was 2. When I was saying 2-5 of 6 to D minor, that should actually be 2-5 to 3, then 2-5 to the 6, which is dominant, 2, flat 7, 1. You get the idea. I'm looking at this in terms of function so that I can relate it to the whole key or the whole tune. The tune is related in the greater sense of itself, meaning that suddenly everything works together. You're not isolating bits and pieces, and oftentimes when people can sometimes get lost, it's simply because they're focusing on one little thing and or they've forgotten one little thing, and that throws the rest of the tune off balance. If you're able to remember functions and relationships, you're more likely to remember the tune, meaning you're less likely to lose the form. Speaking of which, let's talk focus. Focus and concentration. I'm sure there have been many times where we've played a tune, and we've been very concerned about playing some line we learned, playing something hip, playing something that sounds cool, or if we're caught up in our own heads trying to impress, or X, Y, and Z, any number of reasons. Why do I bring this up? It's because it takes us outside of the present moment and being aware of where we are in the music. Some issues in terms of losing the form can be ascribed to either focusing too much on what's going on around you and not enough on yourself, or focusing too much on yourself and not enough of what's going on around you. This even translates to when you're playing solo, in that when you're paying attention too much to yourself and more concerned about the content of your lines, you're not concerned with the greater whole of how are you respecting the harmony or the tune or the changes or the general form. We're not even talking about like free interpretation here, because this needs to be concrete before you can start taking liberties, like reharms and arranging decisions and things like that. So a simple thing to keep in mind is, quite simply, pay attention at all times. And sometimes what this ends up meaning is sometimes maybe playing a little less. I remember for a while what used to happen with me was that I was so concerned about the lines I was playing that I would play and then I would realize I'm running to the end of the measure where I have to make the chord change, and I'd have a little panic moment of sorts and rush the chord change, meaning I would cut off a beat in a measure. So the solution to that was playing less. That was actually probably some of my better playing in this little session right now. At least more melodic and able to weave through the harmony without worrying. And if you're worried about your lines and worried about, like I want to play all these lines I've learned and this vocabulary and things, that's great, but you need a foundation first. And if you can't outline the changes clearly on a tune without people having to guess, then that means you gotta kind of focus on some stuff first. So, and then once you're more comfortable, then the lines can start coming, right? If I'm gonna do like, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. More eighth note lines, or even just doing like, right? More vocabulary, more bop, things like that, or lines that are more free floating. You need an understanding of the meter, time, feel, and phrasing. The last thing I want to point out is one that's kind of simple, but often overlooked. And I think I started thinking about this once I saw a Wayne Krantz clinic when I was at Berkeley. And he mentioned talking about bars of 8, bars of 16, and feeling things on a grid. And this talks about phrase lengths. Now, sure, this doesn't work for every tune. If you're playing... Stablemates has a weird form. So, but you still have to understand the phrase lengths of any individual tune. Now let's say in a more universal context, no matter the genre, usually things are in 4, 8, 16, or some grouping of 4. Understanding this and learning how to feel a phrase length that's gone by is helpful for markers. Why? Because let's say if we look at a regular AABA form, usually this means the first A is 8 bars, second A is 8 bars, B section is 8 bars, last A is 8 bars. All adds up to 32, right? So, yeah, you got 8 bars, 8 plus 8 is 16, right? Then 16 plus 8 is 24, 24 plus 8, 32, right? It all adds up. And that gives us the 32 bar form. Now, I'm not thinking in the grand scheme of how does it feel to have a chorus gone by, but I'm able to kind of have an internal feel of what it feels like to have that running in the background. And as such, I kind of keep track somewhere on a very subconscious level. Bear in mind, this is almost automatic. Okay, 8 bars have gone by. So if we're in Stella, kind of at that tempo. 1, 2, 2, 3, 4. Eight, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 4. 8, and then resolution, right? And that signifies the beginning of a new section in the case of a tune like Stella, right? Which is more like A, B, C, A, you know, because you go to the B section. That's another 8. 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. And then we're back to the top of the form, right? I've been doing that a lot. I gotta kind of move away from that. So I hope this lesson was kind of informative and at least maybe clarified a couple of reasons why you might be struggling with forms and why you might be struggling kind of maintaining a flow, or why you might lose yourself in a tune and have a hard time finding your way back. Focusing on any of these 3 points, or first identifying your main fundamental issue, is the first step in figuring it out. And usually, more often than not, this means that once you figure out your issue, you're kind of already fixing it, because you're already aware of it and you're aware of what to practice in your sessions. So, thanks for tuning in for this lesson. I'm going to jump on Patreon right now and do this quick extended lesson. So if you'd like to join me there, please, the link is in the description. And I will see you in the next video. Take care, guys.